And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have back on my friend Mary Trump, author of the best-selling book, Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man, The Reckoning. Also, she's Mary Trump Show on YouTube. She's got her podcast. She has a great newsletter and a brand new project, The Italian Lesson, which we'll talk about. Then we'll talk politics. So Mary, welcome back. Congratulations.
Hey, Dean, it's great to be here. Thanks.
So-
this is an unexpected twist in my life.
I was reading this. I mean, I get your newsletter. It's on Substack. I tell everyone, sign up for it, The Goodness by Mary Trump. And I get this thing saying you and E. Jean Carroll and Jen Taub, and Jen, by the way, is now a regular on the show. She's on every other week, and are writing a serialized romance novel, The Italian Lesson. So please share a little of the backstory. It's very interesting.
Well, actually, the Substack on which we're serializing the novel, The Italian Lesson, is called Backstory Serial because what is a really important component of the project is our backstory, how it came to be. In sort of at the height of COVID, I think it was the third wave or something, I got invited via DM on Twitter to join a knitting group on Zoom. And everybody involved was somebody, of course, I knew by reputation, but had never met before. So it's like, sure, I know how to knit. I mean, I don't really knit, but I know how to. And it ended up just being a group where people hang out. There wasn't that much knitting going on. And we became, fast friends. And somebody, I think as a way to get us to stay in touch more closely, suggested we write a Hallmark movie together. And I said, well, I've never seen a Hallmark movie, but that could be fun. And of course, nothing came of it. But then a few months ago, I had serious writer's block. And I thought, you know what, instead of a Hallmark movie, why don't we write a romance novel together and serialize it on Substack? And that ended up being what three of us are doing. And I haven't read a romance novel either. So it's been a bit of an interesting experiment for me. But I've been writing fiction since I was 12, so it's definitely in my wheelhouse. And E. Jean is our resident romance novel expert, so she kind of keeps me on track.
Yeah, I saw in the New York Times, you said, I've never read a romance novel in my life, but she's going to write one because that's the Trump in you. I think it comes out like you can do anything, right? Like it doesn't matter. No, I'm kidding. About what Donald will do. So
like fail a lot.
Keep trying. This will be one of a series of bankruptcies that Mary's going to be engaged in. She always says she's a real Trump. So The Italian Lesson, tell us about the story, because Anastasia, an American exile who falls in love with the Tuscan hill town of Calabrese. And I knew Calabrese's in Bergen County, the former mayor of Cliffside Park, very political powerhouse, like a boss guy, Jerry Calabrese, who's actually Calabrese, but similar spelling. So tell us why Anastasia, why Tuscan, why Italy?
Well, it's funny, when we were talking about the Hallmark movie, we basically just used all of the tropes. An American in Tuscany, because it's so romantic, and she buys a cafe. This guy walks in, they fall in love immediately. They set a date. Of course, it's happening around Christmas time. They agree to meet. She thinks he's like a mechanic or something. It turns out he's a prince. And the day before they're supposed to meet, she disappears. So we had the seeds. And I thought, first of all, I love Tuscany. Probably it's my second favorite place on the planet. And it is a great place to set anything. So I thought we should follow some of the conventions. And then I also thought that I would break the rest of them because I don't really know what they are. So
I would imagine you're going to have to go on location to Tuscany to do some scouting soon, right?
Yeah, it would be a shame if we had to do that. But actually, that was one of my goals, is like, we have an excuse now to go to Tuscany.
This is great. And it's funny. And there's a prince involved and all this. It's sort of like, on the Republican side, they have Harlan Crow. That's their prince, right? You've got this book. I was like joking with people. I'm like, I mean, who doesn't want a billionaire who takes you on luxurious trips, buys a house for your mom where she can live rent-free, and pays for kids to go to school and wants nothing in return? Well, that's a dream. I mean, we all want a Harlan Crow. So in your novel, though, so you've got it. So it's you, E. Jean Carroll, and Jen Taub. And it's really a unique background. Jen's a law professor, but she's also written books. E. Jean, obviously, it's a perfect fit for this. But the one thing, to make a point, there's no politics in this, like by design.
Yeah, this is what we call a politics free zone. It's for everybody who's interested. And I said recently, anybody can be somebody who likes romance novels, because I've been asking friends if they're interested in reading advanced copies, and thinking that most of them would say no, because these are legal scholars and they're political pundits, and why would they read romance novels? Apparently, I'm the only person on the planet who doesn't read romance novels, because everybody was like, absolutely, I love romance novels. So that's been an education for me. But more importantly, the backstory is really about our friendship and how this came to be. And we want to create another community where people who wouldn't necessarily be interested in what I have to say or what Jen or Eugene has to say feels comfortable just sharing the creativity and the friendship with us, because there literally is no politics here at all. It's a way, honestly, just to keep us sane, because like you, we can't look away ever. So to have a safe space away from the incessant craziness of the news cycle that we can't escape is really important for all sorts of reasons.
So if people want to sign up, because it's serialized, so it's going to be a few pages at a time, released to people. Are you going to, where can people sign up? One thing. And secondly, are you looking for people to comment, and maybe will that affect the story in the future?
Well, first of all, it's called Backstory Serial, and it's on Substack. So if you just Google it, you can find it easily. Sure. And again, because it's serialized, I can't really give away too much of the plot, but that is the idea. And I've called it an experiment in friendship and creativity. It turns out it's also an experiment in patience, because we're such an immediate gratification society. And I mean, for me too, like, I want to know what people think. Right. But if I'm only giving them a few pages at a time, I have to wait to hear what they think about, what happens a couple of chapters from now. But I write ahead, so comments don't necessarily affect the arc of the story. But if I get something wrong, I'll definitely go back and change it, which is a huge advantage in this situation. And the best thing, I mean, I think one of the best things, if not the best thing about it, is that the great Eugene Carroll is responding to readers' comments in real time, which is just incredible.
And what I read in the New York Times, I think Eugene wants to make it a little racy if she can.
Well, she can't.
She can't. So there's not going to be. And at the end of it, when the whole thing, the whole novel is uploaded as a novel, page after page or segment after segment, will you then turn it into a book? Do you have any interest in doing that, or turn it into a movie?
Yeah, I'd love to do both. In fact, I'd love to get a book deal before we even get near the end, because the book wouldn't be published for a long time. Right. And a movie would it's so visual that I think a movie would be absolutely perfect for this. And, for anybody signing up and saying, well, it's only a year, then what happens? Well, what happens next is we write another book together. Sure. It's just that maybe Eugene will be the author, or Jen will be the author, and I'll be editing, or what have you. But we're going to keep going with this, because we have a million ideas.
Well, romance novels, romance comedy. I haven't read romance novels, but I love romance comedies. And on some level, they're similar. Your next one's got to be a Jersey, be Italian-American in Jersey, falls in love in like maybe Bayonne, something like that. It's very like that kind of Italian. So you went to Italy, then the Italian-Americans where I grew up in Jersey, because they're full of life. I mean, it's a lot of fun what they are. So again, it's called Backstory Serial. If you go to substack.com or just Google Backstory Serial, and the story, the romance novel itself that's serialized, is called The Italian Lesson, and it's free, right? It's not, people can read it?
It's free for now, but you can get a paid subscription. Because of the nature of it, though, it's, with our Substacks, you can add extra features for paid subscribers, and give free subscribers articles and things like that. But because the Substack is the story, it's really kind of not fair to give everything to everybody, or just, to give the story to everybody. So we're trying to figure out how to work with that. So free subscribers will get something, but we're, it's different. It's a totally new kind of venture, even on Substack. So we're trying to work that out. But right now, for the next couple of weeks, everybody who subscribes gets everything, free or paid. So that's just great. So you can see how it works. And if you're not interested, you don't have to keep going.
wait till the cliffhanger, and then okay, you want to see the next thing?
That's right.
$2.99. That's going to be. So we're chatting about Mary Trump. So Mary, let's talk about. Well, the break is over from politics. Let's return to politics right now. Earlier today, Chris Light, the head of CNN, was fired. It looks like he was there for 13 months, and it's kind of interesting that he's gone now. Part of it was the backlash for the town hall for Donald Trump. But then again, ironically enough, what he said at that town hall, Donald Trump, might be used against him and help prosecute the guy for two various things. But what's your reaction? Do you think CNN, we don't know where it's going to go, but will this have an impact on 2024? You have this rudderless CNN now.
I'm not entirely sure that we do. I think I agree with Josh Marshall's assessment over at Talking Points Memo, who said basically that Chris Licht was going to do whatever he was told to do. I think it's the powers that be who made him in charge of CNN, nominally at least, who are really running the show. So I don't know that it's going to matter much. I don't know that it matters who replaces him. The only hope we have, and Dean, as well as or better than most people, that the problem here is that what gets covered and how it gets covered is entirely driven by profit loss assessments. So the only hope, even though that's a terrible way to do the business of journalism, is that CNN will maybe learn a lesson and realize that, going over to the dark side isn't really the way to help inform the American people.
It didn't make sense to me. And I write for CNN every week, but it didn't make sense for the TV side to try to reach an audience, like chasing that mystical audience, or some Democrats always want to chase the mystical white blue collar worker who hasn't voted for Democrats since the 1980s. Right. Like, let's go after them. Like, what? And everyone else you're going to leave. Yeah. They're going to lose because you have no credibility. And I think that the big thing that the Trump town hall did was hurt the credibility of the network, because no one gave a backlash when they did Nikki Haley or Mike Pence. It was because of Donald Trump, the man who attempted a coup, incited a terrorist attack. That's a very unique person in American politics, and he should not have gotten that town hall.
Absolutely.
So,
and I just want to say really quickly,
sure,
that one thing that is interesting is that his town hall, Donald's town hall, did get viewership. I mean, it wasn't incredible, but it was better than average for them. So you would think that might reinforce their pre-existing belief that that's good for them, but viewership has tanked overall. Yeah. And maybe again, that's going to be enough to get them to sit up and take notice.
Yeah, there was no viewer retention. The goal is that you have a big special and people go like, oh, wow, I haven't watched CNN in years. I'm going to tune in again. There was no retention whatsoever. And people who were in the center or the left, whoever, or just didn't like Donald Trump, they tuned out. And then you had Anderson Cooper being beat by Newsmax in overall ratings by Eric Bolling. It's unbelievable. That's literally, and it's still to this day. I just looked at the ratings from last night. They're neck and neck. And that should not be the case. It's CNN versus Newsmax. So Mary, we talked before Donald was charged in New York, and he was putting up this bold face and, I don't care, whatever. And he's charged with 34 felonies, and he did care. Obviously, he had to go there and be embarrassed. It seems he cares more, at least he's showing in his postings, about being charged federally with these federal crimes that are really serious crimes. It could be espionage. It could be a heightened obstruction of justice, not the normal one, but one that goes up to 20 years in prison. What do you get the sense about him now? And what do you think his mindset is? Because with these in federal court, as opposed to state, he would go to jail. He actually would go to jail for some of these.
Yeah, Dean, the thing about Donald is that, one, he knows the difference between right and wrong. But two, he doesn't think it applies to him because he's always gotten away with everything. But three, and this is why maybe he's reacting the way he is, he knows what he's done. Right. And I think he's finding himself in this unique position where, for the first time in his life, people are starting to hold him to account. And that is just, it's entirely unfamiliar. He doesn't know what to do. So I think that's why we're getting this increase in all caps, middle of the night, whatever they're called, truths. But don't get me wrong. I mean, he's been doing that forever. but it does seem like there's a little bit more urgency behind it. And I think that's why, if he does stay in the race, it will be because he has this idea that he'll pardon himself.
And he certainly would. I mean, he talked about that when he was in the first time. Next week is Donald's birthday, next Wednesday. That would be a perfect day for an indictment.
We will all collectively get him a bunch of mashed potatoes for his birthday.
This is going to be, look, I mean, I have on every week MSNBC legal analyst Danny Savalas, who's a practicing criminal defense attorney. We were on yesterday, and he went through, he goes, there is no federal felony that doesn't come with some level of jail time. He goes, if he's convicted of just one, he goes, maybe not, but more than one. And I'm sure his lawyers are telling him, even though he doesn't want to hear it,
Right.
No one wants to lose their liberty. I don't care how tough of you are. This has to be frightening for him. And we've touched on this before, but he becomes even more dangerous if he believes the only way to not go to jail is to win this election. Already nothing was off the table. I don't even know it's a whole new table. I don't know what more to be frightened about, but I'm deeply concerned.
Well, when has there ever been a bottom? And I think this is what a lot of people, especially on the left, seem to miss. Well, and not especially. You would just think that people on the left would know better. But even on the right, people who just think they can ride this wave, including all of the ridiculous candidates for president in the Republican Party, that somehow they'll benefit by his crashing and burning. Well, I have something to tell you guys. If he crashes and burns, in what universe do you think he's not going to make everything crash and burn? So because I think we're decent human beings, it's hard for us to wrap our minds around what damage can be done. But you have to understand, everybody, right, left, middle, whatever, that this will end badly for everybody if he is allowed to roam free while being under, after having been indicted for these incredibly serious potential crimes that, as you mentioned, carry significant prison sentences.
Yeah, these are very serious. It's not a game. I went through on the show yesterday. People were not aware of the seriousness of the charges that were actually laid out in the affidavit to get the search warrant last August. I mean, they identified then. Now the evidence is coming together that fulfill a lot of those elements. So, but what does it say about the GOP? Look, let's be blunt. We could love a Democratic candidate. Me and you were like, I love this candidate. And then that candidate gets charged with 34 felonies and is about to get charged with federal crimes and crimes in Fulton County. And I think even if we love that candidate, we'd be like, we got to find a different person. Instead, the GOP is like, we love him even more. There's no pragmatism. So I imagine it's almost like a religion on some level. There's a level of commitment that it's just a matter of, it's an article of faith to just support Donald Trump and the GOP. It's no longer pragmatism or logical.
Well, unfortunately, it's baked in to American history that there's a significant minority of people in this country who subscribe to the most awful beliefs about their fellow human beings. They believe in white supremacy. They are every bad thing, anti-Semitic, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-woman, anti-children, and pro-gun, So those people have been emboldened over the last 7 years because for 2 years, from 2017 to 2019, they were represented by 100% of the Republican Party and 100% of the federal government, by the way. So they have felt that this is their time to seize their moment. And I think, again, because we on the left particularly don't like to think the worst of people, and it's hard for us to imagine how much hatred there is out there. We forget that the reason Donald started to succeed is because he was so openly misogynistic, because he was found to be a serial sexual abuser of women, because he hated the right people. So if we think that his being found liable for sexually abusing a woman and having to pay her $5 million to make up for the damage he did to her will make a dent in his followership, I have a bridge to sell you, because honestly, that is going to make his base love him more. And it is a cult at this point, and we need to stop pretending that there's anything we can do to break that spell. All we can do really is make sure Democrats win across the board.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm chair with Mary Trump. So two last things here. One is, look, Donald Trump might get charged this week or even next week or in the next few weeks with crimes connected to the Mar-a-Lago documents, as people call them. But isn't it still important that we clamor for him to be charged for January 6 related crimes, even though DOJ, we don't hear much about them? But to me, they are far more important. That's about protecting our democratic republic so that the message is sent. What Donald did, he can't do again, and no one could do again, or you're going to go to jail for it. And that's what concerns me. There's almost no talk of the January 6 crimes.
I completely agree with that. I think one of the worst things about it for those of us who aren't engaged in the legal battle, as a lay person, it's extraordinarily difficult to know that he's guilty because we've seen it. We heard the recording in Georgia. We saw the video on January 6th. We saw his video. We saw his tweets. And we know that other people have been sentenced to up to 18 years in prison for engaging in an insurrection remotely. So what he did was much worse. I think it's just a harder case to make for the DOJ. But I also do think that even though it's not as dramatic because we don't have video and
Right.
people weren't, as far as we know anyway, people weren't almost murdered. The documents case is potentially more serious because, or it's serious in a different way. So, and it just might be an easier case to make because again, there are documents and there's a timeline and there's more evidence and apparently a lot of cooperating witnesses.
And there is an audio recording, which he's, according to the reporting, he's at Bedminster Golf Course saying, I have these documents, the Iran, our plan. I can't show it to you all. It's classified. I'll tell you about it a little bit. And then that document is missing now because DOJ goes and subpoenas it and it's missing. And you're like, this might be an important document. So you're right. There could be something out here. We're assuming he didn't give it to, say, Saudi. We're assuming he didn't do it. And that could be, we can find an even darker, more sinister thing going on here. We just don't know yet.
Well, Dean, I think, first of all, apparently that document drowned or something, but it doesn't matter because what does matter is that he admitted that he understands how declassification works and he didn't care. But we also, of course, it matters whether or not documents changed hands and whether money exchanged hands for those documents. But I think just what happened, the egregious agreement between the PGA and Live Golf, is also evidence that he might have documents that he's holding in exchange for favors from Saudi Arabia. I mean, we know that Jared Kushner got $2 billion for nothing because he has no expertise. He has no ability to do anything that would warrant his receiving $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. So clearly there is something going on and hopefully Jack Smith's getting to the bottom of it, but we certainly, I think we're at the end of the beginning of this whole saga.
I hope so. And very last thing, shifting gears to President Biden, you know, his approval rating is locked at 42%, even though the economy is really good. And what do you think he can do? I don't mean like advising him, but what has to be done for his numbers to go up? Is it about him getting the press more? Is it the corporate media's love of ratings so much? They cover drama over democracy, so they're bored with Biden. What do you think this is? Because objectively, with this kind of economy, his approval rating should be 52, 53%. That's what it objectively should be.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is that we're so polarized that I think it would be almost impossible for anybody in his position to get above 50%. However, there is something completely mystifying. He's creating hundreds of thousands of jobs every month.
Yep.
He's created more jobs in 2.5 years than any full-term president or even two-term president. He's saved the economy. He's saved lives through his COVID strategy. And his approval rating isn't much better than Donald's was when Donald was actually killing Americans, tanking the economy, and dividing us to such a degree that, you know, we are in a sort of cold civil war at this point. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but absolutely the mainstream media aren't helping at all, because, as you say, they only care about the ratings, they only care about the horse race, and they're unwilling to do a deep dive into what the Biden administration is really doing to help the American people, or conversely, to do a deep dive into how destructive this fascist Republican Party is.
Yes, and that contributes to all of it. So, Mary, thanks for being on. Again, her new project, The Italian Lesson, a romance novel. You can go at it. It's online, Backstory Serial. Just Google Backstory Serial on Substack, or go to Substack if you're there. Check it out. It's going to be moving and touching and fun. And if E. Jean Carroll has her way, there'll be nudity. Who knows? But
There won't be.
Mary's like, no nudity. I saw the New York Times, like, no. Thanks, Mary. Thanks so much for being on. It's always great seeing you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Take care.